But before we do, as always, all praise, glory, and honor to Jah, Yah, our Abba, and his only begotten Son, Jehoshua the Messiah, the Nazarite that died for our sins, also known as Yehoshua, Yahusha, Yahawashai, Yahshua, Yeshua, Jesus, Joshua the Messiah, Hamashiach the Christ. All glory to the Father and Son. Praise Jah.
Praise Jah.
But you're at work.
So, as you know, we teach through the Messiah, salvation is offered to every single human being that exists, and it'll only be given to those who come under God's personal mercy, including those who faithfully believe and obediently follow his only begotten Son. This, of course, comes through the nation of Israel, and it's extended to all people of other nations if they want to receive the Messiah. We covered in our last lesson about the olive tree, the two olive trees, the natural olive tree and the wild olive tree. And as you can see here, again, it shows that the natural branches of Israel who had received the Messiah, that's them. And then some of the branches were broken off through unbelief. And then from the wild olive tree, we have the wild branches grafted into Israel who received the Messiah. And of course, they're joining into the family of Israel. We showed a little bit about grafting and the different ways that it can be done. All right, so here we are in the let's call it the first segment of this lesson. Although I put it till 9 o'clock, it'll probably go a little bit earlier that way, but I just kind of put it to that extension. But nonetheless, in the first part, we're going to focus on turn the captivity. And then we're going to focus on the main topic of the lesson, lead it into captivity. And there's some very interesting information, understanding, and especially as it pertains to prophecy, as it pertains to salvation. And especially when it comes to the latter topic, there's a great, understanding of salvation, I believe, that many people are seeking and some may understand as well. So, yeah, we're going to get into that and talk about turn the captivity. Now, you might have seen this phrase, bring back the captivity, and it means seem kind of awkward. So we're just going to cover that term. Again, Shabbat Shalom. I even Shabbat Shalom. Sorry, I always say Shabbat. But Shalom to all who are joining us. Auntie Elma, Greg, Mama Greg, Sister Andrea, Sister Janessa. Shout out to you, Sister Carice. Bless up to all. Mm-hmm. And once again,
Yes. Shalom. Shalom to all the brethren and sisters.
All right. Hey, Judah Blaze. Shalom too. Giving a shout out to everyone. It's nice to see everyone giving a shout out. And peace and love to all. Right. If there are any questions on this topic, or I mean, if some may come up, if we can answer them, if they're within the realm of the conversation, it won't kind of lead us off track, we'll answer it. So feel no way to put it into the comment section. Okay, Brother Javed, go ahead.
Bring again the captivity. The word captivity is a noun and refers to the people taken captive. When Jah brings again or turns again the captivity, it means that these people taken in captivity will be returned from their captivity to their own land. Overall, bring again the captivity is a powerful phrase that speaks of restoration, liberation, and the knowledge of returning to a former state of blessing and acceptance with Jah.
So as we get into this topic, you might have seen again, bring again the captivity. And I know, a couple of people at first, when I first read it a few times, I was like, what? Bring again the captivity? Kind of, it sounds like you're saying, bring the person back into captivity one more time, right? They're in captivity, you got out of it, and you're going to bring again the captivity. But it's actually the opposite. It just means to take away, especially when it says turn again. And I'll help us to understand through the scriptures and a few understandings. Let's take a few reads here.
Job chapter 42, verse 10. And Jah turned the captivity of Job when he prayed for his friends. Also, Jah gave Job twice as much as he had before. Psalms 121, verse 1. When Jah turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them at that dream. Then was our mouth filled with laughter and our tongue with singing. Then said they among the heathen, Jah done great things for them. Jah done great things for us, whereof we are glad. Turn again our captivity, O Jah, as the streams in the south. They that sow in tears shall reap in joy. He that goeth forth and weepeth, bearing precious seed, shall doubtless come again with rejoicing, bringing his sheaves with him.
Okay, so from these verses, I think you can get a sense of what the turn, what it means. Jah turned the captivity of Job, right? So he was in captivity. Remember, the captivity spoken of was, his oppression that he was getting from the devil, and all the things that happened. And after at the end of Job here, it says the Most High gave him twice as much as he had before. Kind of letting us know always, and as a good reminder that not in terms of material things, but this life, we have to go through it. We may be in a captivity, so to speak, in a fleshly body that is kind of, it seems like it's under a law of sin, so to speak. And, if we get through this captivity, God's going to turn it back, and we will have more than we have now in this life here. We see here also pertaining to the Most High's people, Israel and Zion, that again, he says he turns again the captivity of Zion. It was like a dream, right? And he's doing great things. So again, turn again our captivity, O Jah, as the streams. So we see again just the understanding of this term, turn again the captivity. That means Jah is taking away the captivity or returning the people back to a state of blessing and union with the Most High.
That's right.
So again, turned back, turn again. It means it's all the same thing. It can mean turn back, return, to turn back, to return, come or go back. Notice down here it says restore, right? Refresh, repair, restored, to reverse, to revoke, right? To reverse. And it means all these other words too, bring back, obviously. But again, just giving us this understanding to know that, basically it means Jah is reversing the captivity, right? Taking them out of it. And when he says reverse, it's going to be in the complete blessing. You can give that a read there, Brother Javid.
In the Bible, turn the captivity or restore our captivity means Jah miraculously reverses a state of bondage, suffering, or exile, bringing overwhelming joy, restoration, and freedom. As seen in Psalms 126, verse 1, I think we read that earlier, when Israel returned from Babylon feeling like a dream, and also in Job's story where God restored him far beyond his former prosperity after intense trials. It signifies a complete turnaround from despair to blessing, symbolizing Jah's power to liberate people from spiritual chains, addiction, or oppression, making the impossible feel real.
All right. So that's our hope, right? That Jah, returns or brings that, returns back the captivity, right? Restores our captivity to blessings. And that's the greatest hope of Israel, which, seems to be the great, hope of all human beings who want to get eternal life, right? That we come out of this evil captivity. So as we know in scriptures, the Israelites, they went into captivity.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 41. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Verse 43. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hast not hearkened to the voice of Jah thy El, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, because thou servest not Jah thy El with joyfulness, and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies which Jah shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee.
So said, so done, as we know.
Mhm.
And again, this is the captivity as we see extending, also known as Jacob's troubles, right? And
That's
it extends a little bit into the future. And Jacob's trouble, we're in the last trouble of the 7 troubles of Jacob. And so, it's a good time to understand these things, that Jacob's trouble is near over and the captivity will soon, be free, will be kind of returned from it. So we can see, what this captivity has done to the people of Israel. Now, let's not just look at these things in Israel, but also look at your life. And especially once you kind of come to know the Most High, and if we dare to turn from him, when it says a stranger and it's talking about all of these things, it just means that Jah is going to be against you completely. So even though it does apply to Israel, it applies to all those also who want to come to the Most High and disobey him. Right? I'm not talking about people who don't want to respect him and everything, because we know, that's just a completely different category. So it also says that here that we never served him with joyfulness and gladness of heart.
Mhm.
And that's important because, if you're serving the Most High and he's searching the minds, and the hearts and the reins in your thoughts, and it's kind of like he can tell if you don't really want to serve him. You're just going through the motions. Maybe you feel a little bit of peer pressure. And this really comes down to you and your personal faith, right? And if you're gonna not read as much, if you're not gonna pray, in a sincere way and have proper meditation on the Most High, these things can make you come away from the Most High, and serving him won't be like a pleasure anymore. It almost feel like a task, like, oh man, I gotta go read, and these things can happen to us. So it's good that we understand the blessings that the Most High gives, and we always remember the promises, and that'll keep us going from day to day.
And this is a good reminder for us reading this verse in Deuteronomy chapter 28, where we read that the Israelites were cursed, right? And because of their disobedience. And, when you think of the word curse, a lot of people think it's like some maple leaf fantasy thing, but Jah can bring curses upon you, right? And curses, it just means like bad things can happen, evil things. And it's a reminder that when we turn from Jah, who's supposed to be our father and our parent, is going to end up turning against us and letting our enemies rule over us, and he'll be against us. And that's not something that we want to ever be in a position like that. But the children of Israel are in this position up until this very day. But Jah, as we know in the future, is going to return back the captivity that we're currently in and free us from Satan's bondage.
That's right. And if we want to come out of the curse, we come to the Messiah, because he became a curse for us, and this allows us to be in. All right, let's move on. So again, all faithful Israelites, that means including Gentile believers, will be saved by Jah's mercy through the Messiah. Again, always everything is done through the Messiah. Scripture.
Deuteronomy 30, verse 3. That then Jahdiel will turn thy captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither Jahdiel hath scattered thee. Psalms 14, verse 7. Oh, that the salvation of Israel were come out of Zion, when Jah bringeth back the captivity of his people. Jacob shall rejoice, and Israel shall be glad.
Again, straightforward verses, right? Again, turn thy captivity, bring back the captivity of his people. We could see that it means positive things, because we don't really know these things. So people can say, bring back the captivity of his people, even though when you do read around context, it should give us an understanding, right? So again, very straightforward. You want to add anything here, Brother Javed?
No, these verses are pretty straightforward.
Yeah. All right.
Jeremiah 30, verse 1. The word that came to Jeremiah from Jah, saying, Thus speaketh Jah El of Israel, saying, Write thee all the words that I have spoken unto thee in a book. For lo, the days come, saith Jah, that I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel and Judah, saith Jah, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave to their fathers, and they shall possess it. Verse 18. Thus saith Jah, Behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling places. And the city shall be builded upon her own heap, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof.
All right. So again, only emphasis here going through these verses, letting us understand that this bring again the captivity, returning captivity is a positive and it's a good thing. It basically deals with salvation when you really start to look at it, right?
Mm.
And again, he's speaking about Jacob. When it says Jacob's tents, that's obviously the tribes of Jacob. All right, I'm going to continue moving on.
Ezekiel 39, verse 25. Therefore thus saith Jael, now will I bring again the captivity of Jacob, and have mercy upon the whole house of Israel, and will be zealous for my holy name. Amos 9, verse 14. And I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof. They shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them.
Wow. We have a lot to look forward to when we come back on the kingdom in the resurrection, and those people who are in the future and get an opportunity to be brought into the land of Canaan. It's going to be a beautiful thing. We're going to be doing for that 1,000 years. It's like we're going to be in Jah's garden again, taking care of it. And it's almost like Israel is going to be like the Garden of Eden, a paradise that will be taken care of in great pleasure, right? And it's something again that we look forward to. And without a doubt, we know that when it comes to the nation of Israel being the head at that time, not the tail anymore, the other nations that cleave to Israel too, that are coming in, they're also going to be a part of this community, and all will be working. It's not going to be like what people say, beating the Gentiles and all this and that. They're going to get their all this going to get beaten before we start to settle down. Once we settle down, the Most High says that we'll beat our plowshares, the weapons. Was it? Weapons, swords into plowshares, right? Meaning that there's not going to be no more violence. So everything's going to be done in great peacefulness. So let's continue.
Ezekiel 34, verse 11. For thus saith Jael, behold, I, even I, will both search my sheep and seek them out, as a shepherd seeketh out his flock in the day that he is among his sheep that are scattered. So will I seek out my sheep, and will deliver them out of all places where they have been scattered in the cloudy and dark day. And I will bring them out from the people, and gather them from the countries, and bring them to their own land, and feed them upon the mountains of Israel by the rivers, and in all the inhabited places of the country. I will feed them in a good pasture, and upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. There shall they lie in a good fold, and in a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. I will feed my flock, and will cause them to lie down, saith Jah Elohim. I will seek that which was lost, and bring again that which was driven away, and will bind up that which was broken, and will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong. I will feed them with judgment.
Wow. Praise Jah.
Praise Jah.
Greatness. Shepherds are very important to the flock, as you know, and that's the Most High looking after his sheep, and we know his sheep are his people, Israel. And again, we can see that speaking about bringing them in again, right, and restoring them, bringing back to beautiful things, and not just going to be for the 1,000-year reign on this earth, which is something we all look forward to, but then also Jah speaks about even greater things with the new heavens and a new earth, which again, as you know, the Most High has so much different styles and designs and creativity that it can never end.
Speaking about being the shepherd, it's nice to know that even though Israel is scattered throughout the countries of the world, as we read in verse 13, Jah is going to be the one to gather his people and bring us back to the land that he gave to our forefathers, right?
That's right.
And there's a lot of people Israelites in the world who are going to try and force some regathering by their own means, some by political reasons. Some people believe that
Mm.
some outlandish things about Trump gonna make all the Israelites gather together in America, and
Wow.
Israelites are just trying to force their own way into this regathering when Jah's gonna be the one to do it. We won't have to do anything physical about that, packing your bags and stuff like that. So just remember, Jah's our shepherd. He knows who his sheep are, and he'll be the one doing the gathering.
That's right, brother. That's right. I didn't even know all those things were going on, but again,
Yeah.
nothing is surprising anymore. Yo, bless up there, Jeronko. Righteous truth of love by Messiah. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall
Mhm.
obtain mercy. True words, Lion. True words.
Shalom. Joel 3, verse 1. For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Jehudah and Jerusalem, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink.
Yeah, again, these are just verses. We're going over these verses here just to understand these terms and all the different information attached to it. And we can see that, over all the centuries, during Jacob's troubles, is many things, bad things were going on. And yes, the Most High gave us into the slavery and into the curses, but it was due to our fault, right? And it's one thing that we always have to remind ourselves, that it's almost like a form of discipline, but the Most High's mercy is still there to those who truly cry out to Him and seek Him in love. Shalom, shalom again, brother. Yes.
Yes, shalom, brother.
All right. Don't worry. This is going to start getting a little bit more interesting. We're not just covering these verses for nothing.
Amos chapter 9, verse 11. In that day will I raise up the tabernacle of David that is fallen, and close up the breaches thereof. And I will raise up his ruins, and I will build it as in the days of old, that they may possess the remnant of Edom, and of all the heathen which are called by my name, saith Jah, that doeth this. Behold, the days come, saith Jah, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth seed, and the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. And I will bring again the captivity of my people of Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof. They shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them.
Sorry about that. That's just a typo there. Typo. Yes. So again, taking a look here, it says that they may even possess the remnant of Edom and of all the heathen which are called by my name. So this possession, a lot of people think this possession is going to be like, yep, we're going to be shipping them and everything. No, they're just going to be the employees, and we will be the employers. You understand? And we will, they will be a part of our possession. They will be working with Israel. It's Israel's possession. So they're a part of Israel. This has nothing to do with sticking our foot in their neck or anything of that nature. The Most High, is dealing with them, like I said already prior to. So again, building up the waste cities. So when the Most High comes, remember, the place is going to be mashed up already because of all the trumpets that have been blown and everything that's going on. So the earth is going to be rebuilt again, replanted, and some of that time might be taken. It might be even a first 7-year period. And during this 7-year period, again, is a rebuilding of the earth. And those people that will be in Israel will have, of course, special I guess they just have special positions, in Jah's kingdom in Israel.
And you can see clearly again the understanding that bring again the captivity just means Jah's going to be reversing all the evil things that have happened to us and the people of Israel. And now, instead of all the curses, we're going to receive all the blessings. Because you read here that we'll build the waste cities and inhabit them. Under the curses, we were supposed to build things and not inhabit them. We were supposed to plant vineyards and not be able to drink the wine. and eat the fruit of them. Other people were going to take those things. So now we get to enjoy all the blessings that Jah has for the children of Israel that he intended for them to have at the beginning.
That's right. That's right. All right. So why this gets interesting is that, I want to get into a few things here in terms of bringing in the captivity. And I want you to keep some things in mind, how the Most High, speaks about, strangers coming into joining Israel. We know all throughout the law that that's allowed. Strangers can just join Israel. The men would have to circumcise, keep the Most High's laws and statutes, and they would be a part of, Israel's inheritance that way. So I want to take a read off of these few, some scriptures about these few countries here, and let's see what kind of information we can get.
Jeremiah 48, verse 46. Woe be unto thee, O Moab! The people of Chemosh perisheth, for thy sons are taken captives, and thy daughters captives. Yet will I bring again the captivity of Moab in the latter days, saith Jah. Thus far is the judgment of Moab. Mute, Sean.
Okay, I want you to remember something about, Ammon and Moab. A lot of people kind of just focus on the fact that, they slept with Lot, the daughters slept with Lot. But listen here. One of the main things about Moab and Ammon is that they come from Lot, and Lot is very beloved of the Most High. And even he's considered to be called righteous Lot. Him and his family were spared and saved. So Lot still, Jah still loved Lot. And this is why you're going to see when it comes to Moab and Ammon, yes, there was a problem with them, but the Most High never talks about, what people might say would be the incest thing at all, because that was a certain situation that was very, very unique. You understand? However, you'll see that, the Moabites and Ammonites, they weren't kind of cool with the Israelites. And the Israelites are like their cousins, right? Because as you know, Abraham and Lot, and I think Lot was Abraham's nephew. So they're kin. But we see here that the Most High says he's going to punish them. They're going to be taken captive. But look at that. In the latter days, it says too, about just like he said about Israel, he's going to bring again their captivity. Right? But he says, thus far is the judgment of Moab. But it says in the latter days. So what is this talking about, right? I mean, if we're going to say that it's talking about Israel being brought to captivity, bring again, we read so many verses, that's why I read them first. Then this is also letting us know that it's speaking about this remnant of Moab also, that is going to be a part of Jah's kingdom. And we're going to go on more to see.
Jeremiah 49, verse 6. And afterward, I will bring again the captivity of the children of Ammon, saith Jah. Verse 39. But it shall come to pass in the latter days that I will bring again the captivity of Elam, saith Jah. Ezekiel 16, verse 53. When I shall bring again their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity of Samaria and her daughters, then will I bring again the captivity of thy captives in the midst of them. Ezekiel 29, verse 14. And I will bring again the captivity of Egypt, and I will cause them to return into the land of Pathros, into the land of their habitation, and they shall be there a base kingdom.
So there'll be a lower kingdom that we know for Egypt, but they're going to again be brought back again. Because as we see, if you remember in Zechariah, it says somewhere that if the Egyptians don't come and keep the Feast of Tabernacles, no rain for them, right? So again, Jah will be putting, a lot of those nations back into where they were supposed to be, because Jah had certain blessings for those nations. Jah said Egypt was my people, right? He likened them unto the Ethiopians. But take a look again. In the latter days, he's going to bring back the captivity of Elam, of Ammon. Look at that, the captivity of Sodom. Now, that sounds very, very strange, right? But we'll look into that again. This is now, none of these things are talking about focusing on who the people are, but Jah giving these prophecies about these various nations. And remember, just like with Israel, and these nations, it's a remnant. You don't mean that he's saving all of Sodom, because Sodom and Gomorrah, as you know, are great examples in the scriptures, right? Of destruction. But notice in Ezekiel 16, he says, when I bring again the captivity of Sodom and the captivity of Samaria, which is also Israel, as well, the 10 tribes, then will I bring again the captivity of thy captives. So what we're going to start to see is that bringing in the captives, or returning the captives, it almost seems like they're all going to be happening at the same time. It might be when the Messiah comes, and those are remnant of those who love the Messiah that are on the earth, and they're Egyptians or whatever, they're going to be. So I don't know how the Most High does it, but we're getting a sense, because it does say he's going to do these things in the latter days. And it's the same with Israel. He's bringing again their captivity. And again, it says, it's around the same time. When I do that, that's when I'm going to be doing it for you as well.
Well, that's interesting to point out that, so far we've read Jah returning the captivity of Israel, but now we're reading that the captivity of these other nations, Jah is going to return also. Moab, Ammon, Elam, Sodom, Samaria, and Egypt. So this is something interesting to take note of.
Because they were against, just like how when Israel went against the Most High, he put them into captivity. Well, these nations, of course, they were against the Most High and his people too. So, he punished all of these nations. Most of all of those nations, and there's going to become a greater punishment in the end, but a lot of those nations got great judgments back in the days, as we all know, right? The Egyptians and Moabites, even due to when the Greeks took over, they punished all the black nations.
True. Good point. Jeremiah 49, verse 1. Concerning the Ammonites, thus saith Jah, has Israel no sons? Hath he no heir? Why then doth their king inherit Gad, and his people dwell in his cities? Therefore, behold, the days come, saith Jah, that I will cause an alarm of war to be heard in Rabbah of the Ammonites, and it shall be a desolate heap, and her daughters shall be burned with fire. Then shall Israel be heir unto them that were his heirs, saith Jah. Howl, O Heshbon, for Ai is spoiled. Cry, ye daughters of Rabbah, gird you with sackcloth, lament, and run to and fro by the hedges, for their king shall go into captivity, and his priests and his princes together. Wherefore glorious thou in the valleys, thy flowing valley, O backsliding daughter, that trustest in her treasures, saying, who shall come unto me? Behold, I will bring a fear upon thee, saith Jah El of hosts, from all those that be about thee, and ye shall be driven out, every man right forth, and none shall gather up him that wandereth. And afterward I will bring again the captivity of the children of Ammon, saith Jah.
Wow, look at that. Look at all of the description of what he's doing. He said the days come, he's gonna mash them up, do all kind of things, send them into captivity, their priests, every single thing, driven out. And then again in verse 6, it's like he said to the nation of Israel, and afterward I will bring again the captivity of the children of Ammon. You see, like if you were to read that and not really know what that bring again the captivity, you would think that bring again just means I'm gonna keep beating them. You know what I mean? Because
right.
And here it's talking about destruction, and then it's like saying, and afterward I'm gonna do it again. No, but
yes, I see how someone might read that.
You wouldn't know what that would mean. And so you can see here what he's saying is that no, I'm gonna reverse it, and I won't be beating you, but you will be accepted by me. When he says accepted, again, when people get a little bit sensitive, all people from other nations, no, always a remnant. Just like it's a remnant from Israel, it's a remnant from other nations. But
That's
Israel
right.
have a bigger portion, no doubt. You don't know that already, because it's
of course
a multitude, right?
That's right. Israel again is the natural tree, right? God's not removing the tree. He just took out some branches and put in some new ones, but the tree remains.
Yeah, man, true. Interesting though, Brother Javed? What's going on here?
Yes, very interesting about these other nations that Jah's gonna return back and bring their captivity back. Ezekiel 29, verse 12. And I'll make the land of Egypt desolate in the midst of the countries that are desolate, and her cities among the cities that are laid waste shall be desolate 40 years. And I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations, and will disperse them through the countries. Yet thus saith Jael, at the end of the 40 years will I gather the Egyptians from the people whither they were scattered. And I will bring again the captivity of Egypt, and will cause them to return into the land of Pathros, into the land of their habitation, and they shall be there a base kingdom.
So this could also already have happened into the past with this kingdom here, right? But I still think it has a little bit of talking about into the future. And the reason why, I don't know if it's special count, but we have the end of 40 years will I gather the Egyptians. But I haven't seen no gathering of the Egyptians into the land at all, even up until this day. Because we know
That's
that
true.
in Egypt is not the real Egyptians. So
True.
again, I see these things as prophetical. I'm only bringing this understanding in case anybody might say, well, it's for this and for that. But look at that. He says, I'll scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them through the countries. This is why I try to say, be careful. You think just another black person you see somewhere else, and if there's some other country, it's got to be an Israelite. You see right here that the Israelites were Egyptians were also black Egyptians were also scattered among the nation and dispersed to the countries. Isn't that something, brother?
Yeah. No, it's very, if you weren't aware, that's very eye-opening to see. The same thing that happened to Israel has happened to the Egyptians as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, rightfully so, it makes sense because the Gentiles control modern day Egypt now. You don't see no remnant of any true Egyptians there. And, some say they're in Ethiopia, some say Sudan. But regardless, Jah says here that they were scattered.
That's right. That's right.
Deuteronomy 23, verse 1. He that is wounded in the stones or hath his privy member cut off shall not enter into the congregation of Jah. A bastard shall not enter into the congregation of Jah. Even to his 10th generation shall he not enter into the congregation of Jah.
So what I want to look at here now is, as we look at a couple of things, right, is that when we're looking at this being able to enter Jah's congregation, I want you to see that Jah does have time limits on it, right? He does put time limits, even though it might seem like, if he says to the 10th generation, that just means like, it doesn't, people want to put like a time period on it that way, but it's like, if we're talking like, when we get to the next verses, it'll be a little bit more clear. But what I want you to let it says here, a bastard should not enter the congregation even to his 10th generation. So that means, I'm not going to get into the definition of bastard right now or anything, but that's going down. So his grandson, and if you do that 10 times, then after that, that's when they're allowed, to come back in. So it'd almost be like in the 11th generation, they can enter the congregation again. Right. And you're going to see that Jah puts time limits on these things.
Good point.
Jonathan says, Jah bring the other nations into the tree. Where then is the separation? Paul said that the Jews went inward and trying to get a bit. Well, I don't know if you got to see last week's lesson, Brother John, but we focused, that was all entirely on the natural and the wild olive tree. And I think we did a good explanation. So maybe, I don't know, you might want to check it out because I kind of want to stick on this topic here. So unless you want to try to, tackle it quickly, Brother Javid, this question.
I'm not sure what he means by the separation, but I mean, obviously, Jah's going to separate the heathen from his people. And so Jah's, as Sean and I have been saying in other lessons too, Jah's taking a remnant of those wild olive trees, those wild olive branches, right? It's not taking all of them. Jah's taking those who come to Joshua the Messiah in love, and the remnant of those Gentile nations are coming into Jah's family. They're not replacing his family. They're coming and being adopted and being a part of his family. So the separation is there, but the separation is just for the heathens. But those heathen nations who turn to Jah in righteousness, they will now become a part of Jah's family. So I hope that makes sense.
They would be called like the inward Jew. I know people don't like the term spiritual Israelite because it's not really there, but you could even say, well, I guess, I mean, even though the term spiritual Israelite isn't there, the concept is there. But when
Mhm.
he says, like you said here, inward Jew, so that's what it would be. There are, true Jews, true Israelites, right? But if they're disobedient to the Most High, this is what the Most High means by being a true Jew, being a true Israelite. Like he said with Nathaniel, a true Israelite indeed. It didn't mean that his blood was more pure or anything like that. It just meant that his faith towards the Most High. And so when a Gentile does come in and get grafted in, it's like they become like an inward Jew. On the outside, they're, a Gentile, but inwardly, they're like an Israelite because of the Most High, accepting the Most High and walking in his ways. So
That's true. And just to add to that, which is a good point, the inward Jew is just referring to the spirit, right? Jah's going to give his spirit to those who obey him. And his people received the Jah's Holy Spirit first, but then we see that also the Gentiles also received the Holy Spirit. And those who receive the Holy Spirit inwardly, of course, they are Jews. They are true people of Jah because they have the Spirit inwardly. Even though they might look different from the children of Israel, they are all a part of Jah's family. Why? Because they all have his spirit in them.
Yes.
And so the outward appearance means nothing at that point once you have Jah's spirit.
That's right. That's right. Well said. Let's continue.
Verse 3, an Ammonite or a Moabite shall not enter into the congregation of Jah. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of Jah forever, because they met you not with bread and with water in the way when you came forth out of Egypt, and because they hired against thee Balaam, the son of Beor of Pethor of Mesopotamia, to curse thee.
Mm-hmm. So, this is giving us some insight information about, what Jah is dealing with. Remember how much he talked about punishing Ammon and Moab, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's punished them because I noticed that he said that Ammon and Moab won't be able to come in until when? The latter days. That's way after their 10th generation.
Way after.
Again, he's letting time go by. And I'll even show you more that Jah is talking about 10th generation. He's not just saying, hey, forever. If he does say 1,000 generations, then that's a long time. You understand? And even then, I'm pretty sure since the beginning of the earth, there's more than 1,000 generations. There's of human beings coming through. So
it's like a punishment, right? But Jah's putting a time limit on the punishment that he's giving them.
that's
Just
right.
like the children of Israel. Jacob's troubles is a time period, but it doesn't last forever. When that time period runs out, that's the end of Jacob's troubles. And so these other nations who are also receiving a beating and a punishment, they're going to have a time when that time runs out, and they'll be able to enter into Jah's congregation also once that punishment runs through.
That's right. Now, this doesn't. When we're reading this verse, this doesn't apply to the person who basically, like you can see, is castrated. It's not talking about his generations or anything like that. It just says that individual is castrated; they're not allowed to enter. And then it goes to the bastard. You understand? Maybe a man born off of some type of understanding how bastard is. Like I said, that then his descendants can't come in, and the Ammonite and Moabite descendants can't come in at that time. But up here, it's talking about just that person individually.
Got it.
This is, I think, it's a continuation. Yep, continuation.
Yep. Deuteronomy 23, verse 5. Nevertheless, Jahdiel would not hearken unto Balaam, but Jahdiel turned the curse into a blessing unto thee, because Jahdiel loved thee. Thou shalt not seek their peace, nor their prosperity all thy days forever. Thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in his land. The children that are begotten of them shall enter into the congregation of Jah in their 3rd generation.
Oh, so we see again, Jah's having you said not 10th generation. Now, when can they come in?
3rd generation.
3rd generation. The Most High is talking about commandments here, not abhorring, having hatred toward an Edomite or abhorring an Egyptian for reasons that he says. The Edomite is Jacob's brother. It's kind of strange how we, the two brothers, and the Esau and Jacob, the hatred and what's going on. And the Most High took it upon himself. He said, Jacob I've loved and Esau I've hated. That's his prerogative. He let you know he made a choice before they were even born. He didn't say, this, I hate Esau because of how he looks or anything. It was before they were born that the elder was going to serve the younger. And that's just showing you God's choice here. But he's telling the Israelites in Deuteronomy not to abhor them, right? And this means that they're allowed to come in, right, in their third generation. That's what he's saying. That's why he's saying, don't let the hatred go on so long, like how let Esau have that hatred on his head. But if an Edomite wants to come and serve Jah, it says, the children that are begotten of them shall enter the congregation in their third generation.
That's right.
So you can almost say like Esau couldn't come in, then his set of sons that he might have had couldn't come in, and their set of sons and stuff couldn't come in. After that third generation, boom, the next set of sons, they would be allowed to come in.
That's right.
They'd be coming in their fourth generation.
That's right. And this is written in the law of Moses, just as a reminder to any Israelites who show hatred to other nations and only love the children of Israel. Just saying, don't hate them.
And I know people try to take this and take the word abhor and try to make it seem it means something else, and it doesn't really mean abhor, but it means ceremonially this and that. But
Foolishness.
What he's talking about, he's thy brother, and talking about the Egyptian because you were a stranger. The context is very clear.
Ezekiel 16, verse 45. Thou art thy mother's daughter, that loatheth her husband and her children, and thou art the sister of thy sisters, which loathe their husbands and their children. Your mother was an Hittite, and your father an Ammonite, or an Amorite. And thine elder sister is Samaria, she and her daughters that dwell at thy left hand, and thy younger sister that dwelleth at thy right hand is Sodom and her daughters. Yet hast thou not walked after their ways, nor done after their abominations. But as if that were a very little thing, thou wast corrupted more than they all in thy ways. As I live, saith Jael, Sodom thy sister hath not done, she nor her daughters, as thou hast done, thou and thy daughters. Behold, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom, pride, fullness of bread, and abundance of idleness was in her and in her daughters, neither did she strengthen the hand of the poor and needy. And they were haughty, and committed abomination before me. Therefore I took them away as I saw good.
Good information to get here. Wow. And usually when you start to think of certain things, we'll start at the top first here. So when it says your father was an Amorite and your mother was a Hittite, was it Jacob? How long he spent a long time in was it in that land there, the land of the Amorites? You understand? That one. So it's talking about their descendants and kind of where they're coming from. But notice he says the elder sister is Samaria, right, and her daughters are at the left hand. And the younger sister is Sodom at the right hand. And when you kind of look at a map from the east point of view and you see it right, you'll see that, Samaria is at the left hand of like Judah or Israel in the middle, and Sodom and Gomorrah at the right hand near where the Dead Sea is, right?
Okay.
So one thing I want us to see here is that the Most High is saying that Israel, right, was more corrupted than Sodom and Gomorrah were. Now, when we usually think of Sodom and Gomorrah, we just think about the sexuality thing, and we know that's true there. But I mean, the Most High lets you know a little bit more. He says, this was the iniquity of thy sister Sodom. So in this area here, it kind of letting you know that as he lists pride, we always know what, the pride parades, the fullness of bread, having enough money, right? You got all the money, the abundance of idleness, even you have a lot of time, right? And didn't strengthen the hand of the poor, very greedy, right? And selfish and needy, and were haughty, thought better of themselves, right?
Yeah.
And then this caused them to commit all these abominations because, they're looking at themselves and saying, look at all these things we got money. It's not what Israel did too. When Jah saves Israel, he makes them nice, he makes them fat. As soon as they get nice and everything's nice, they go whoring again. So the Most High teaching a serious lesson here, even just knowing that the Sodom and Gomorrah thing isn't just the sexuality thing, but he says this is their iniquity, so these things kind of all tie together. You understand? And as far as I know, the wealthy of this world, they can do, they have their choice of how they want to move in their, sexuality, choices. But he says again, they were more corrupted, right? The Israelites were more corrupted, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's all I have to say there, because I think we're going to continue reading. I think we're still in the same section. It's a little bit of a long couple of slides here on this one, unless you want to say something, brother. Look at 48.
Sodom, thy sister, hath not done as thou hast done. It goes to show you that the wickedness of Israel, and when you consider the anger and fury that Jah came at Israel with, you can see why it's justified. But it's very severe if Jah is saying that they did worse than Sodom and Gomorrah.
And they were close because they were closer to the Most High, right? And that's kind of how it goes. Let's continue.
Ezekiel 16, verse 51. Neither hath Samaria committed half of thy sins, but thou hast multiplied thine abominations more than they, and hast justified thy sisters in all thine abominations which thou hast done. Thou also, which hast judged thy sister, bear thine own shame for thy sins that thou hast committed, more abominable than they. They are more righteous than thou. Yea, be thou confounded also, and bear thy shame, in that thou hast justified thy sisters.
So see what's going on here. Just saying, you also which judge your sisters, and we know how we can go. People can be, hardcore judgmental against people who want to choose their own sexuality. Meanwhile, those people who are saying, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, might be doing all kind of worse things, and maybe not even geared in the sexual area, but they're doing things in the other area, prideful, and all of those other sins that, it says that was linked to Sodom as well. So we see again, it says, some of these countries and the other nations that were wicked and they were far from the Most High, and then Israel, who started to know the Most High's things, he's using terms like this. Samaria hasn't committed half the sins that you've done. You've multiplied abominations. And he says that Israel is so wicked that basically it's like they justified, this is where the branches talk comes in, they justified the other nations. Like it's almost like they're saying, like, the Most High is saying, oh, Sodom and Gomorrah, wicked place, buns it up. And then it says, Israel, you're the apple of my eye. But then Israel does what they do, and then worse, and they're even closer to the Most High. It's almost like the Most High is saying, boy, I'm telling you, we shouldn't be pointing fingers anymore, because, your evils that we've done, our people, might be justifying a lot of these nations, the same ones that we say are going to get it and everything, of which they will. But now I think Jah's giving us a little bit of insight to how he thinks. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, he called these other nations more righteous than his own. Right, verse 52, they are more righteous than thou.
Yeah. Let's continue.
Verse 53, when I shall bring again their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity of Samaria and her daughters, then will I bring again the captivity of thy captives in the midst of them, that thou mayest bear thine own shame, and mayest be confounded in all that thou hast done, and in that thou art a comfort unto them. When thy sisters, Sodom and her daughters, shall return to their former estate, and Samaria and her daughters shall return to their former estate, then thou and thy daughters shall return to your former estate. For thy sister Sodom was not mentioned by thy mouth in the day of thy pride.
Wow, eh? See what Jah's talking about, bringing their captivity, and then he says, then I'm going to return you. This is talking about certain things going on in the future, and again, certain understandings and things that when Jah's talking about these other nations, we might not understand really what's going on. But as you can see here, he's talking about thy sister's son was not mentioned by thy mouth in the day of your pride, right? So he's saying in the day of thy pride. There's that word again, pride. It's never good in the Bible, never used good at all, proud or pride. And we don't need to be in that area. And it's like when you know, when Israel was all nice and everything and doing all their things and doing all their wickedness, it's like, you know, they weren't saying much about Sodom. But once, you know, it says back in those certain times, you know, 52, but thou which also judged thy sisters, right? So again,
Mm-hmm.
watching how things are going on here, just as he's going to return the captivity of Sodom, does that mean he's saving all those wicked people that he bun up and all that kind of stuff, and people who want to move in that lifestyle and want to? No, because believe it or not, Sodom is really like, it's like a family of people too, right? It's a nation. So
True.
Jah has a remnant of some in that nation. He don't have a remnant of Sodomites. Don't get it twisted.
Mm-hmm.
We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about inhabitants of Sodom. We can consider Lot an inhabitant of Sodom, but he wasn't a Sodomite, but he did live there. Do you know what I
True.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Good
I'm not
point.
trying to twist it up, just trying to make you understand certain things here. I think that's it before we move on. You
Mm-hmm.
ready to move on?
Yeah. Let's move on.
Still in the same area.
Ezekiel 16, verse 57. Before thy wickedness was discovered, as at the time of thy reproach of the daughters of Syria, and all that are round about her, the daughters of the Philistines, which despise thee round about. Thou hast borne thy lewdness and thine abominations, saith Jah. For thus saith Jael, I will even deal with thee as thou hast done, which hast despised the oath in breaking the covenant. Nevertheless, I will remember my covenant with thee in the days of thy youth, and I will establish unto thee an everlasting covenant. Then shalt thou remember thy ways and be ashamed, when thou shalt receive thy sisters, thine elder and thy younger, and I will give them unto thee for daughters, but not by the covenant, but not by thy covenant. And I will establish my covenant with thee, and thou shalt know that I am Jah, that thou mayest remember and be confounded, and never open thy mouth any more because of thy shame, when I am pacified toward thee for all that thou hast done, saith Jael.
Mm. See, when he says not by thy covenant right there, right? He's not, he's like, he said, I'm going to give you, you know, even if Sodom and all these nations do come back in and they're going to be employees and servants of the Most High's people, he's saying, he's like, I'm not doing it because of any covenant by your covenant. He's just saying, I have something. Get what I'm saying? Because he's the one who said he's going to bring them into captivity. So he's not doing it because of them. It's because something that he has with them. It's not the people's covenant, but it's a covenant that he has. And you can see those are the words he said to Moab, Ammon, Elam, Egypt, and Sodom, that he would return their captivity in the latter days.
That's right.
As we finish it off, this part.
Ezekiel 16, verse 52. Thou also, which hast judged thy sisters, bear thine own shame for thy sins, that thou hast committed more abominable than they. They are more righteous than thou. Yea, be thou confounded also, and bear thy shame, in that thou hast justified thy sisters. When I shall bring again their captivity, the captivity of Sodom and her daughters, and the captivity of Samaria and her daughters, then will I bring again the captivity of thy captives in the midst of them, that thou mayest bear thine own shame, and mayest be confounded in all that thou hast done, in that thou art a comfort unto them. When thy sisters Sodom and her daughters shall return to their former estate, and Samaria and her daughters shall return to their former estate, then thou and thy daughters shall return to your former estate.
Is this a repeat?
It kind of sounds like it, but
Yeah, but it does sound different too. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, but nonetheless, you know, this is again very straightforward, right? Talking about the returning to former state and Israel and everything.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's fire through these because they're actually all saying the same thing here. Go ahead,
Okay.
brother.
Matthew 10, verse 15. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city.
Now, don't read
Matt,
this part here.
all
Okay,
right.
right? We know that he goes to Capernaum. It's going to be more tolerable for the land of Sodom, more tolerable for the land of Sodom, more tolerable for the land of Sodom. And some of these are repeats of the same thing. You can read the bottom one there, Revelation 11.
Revelation 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our master was crucified.
Now, I only brought these verses on here just to have a little bit of a quick discussion about judgment. In the judgment, there's certain different layers of punishment. Because the Most High is saying it's going to be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. Sodom and Gomorrah is getting, a bad judgment, but Jah might have mercy. Like, Jah's going to probably have more. I mean, Jah says hypocrites have a worse kind of judgment. False prophets have a worse judgment. Those who take his name have a worse judgment, right? Everybody's going to get a different type of judgment, but then there's extremes. And I'm just showing you again, when he was talking about Sodom and Gomorrah returning to their former state, you see here again, Capernaum. What other city is it here? I'm not sure what the cities are called here, but again, it's more tolerable for a city that rejects, and that was around Israel at that time, that rejected the Messiah. If you rejected the Messiah at that time and they witnessed all his miracles and heard the preaching and they rejected him, it was worse for them it's going to be worse for them in the judgment than Sodom and Gomorrah. And that's kind of what I want to kind of bring it around to understanding that. And look at that. He called where our Messiah was crucified. What is it spiritually called? Sodom and Egypt. Right?
Egypt. Wow.
So you can see the spiritual connection of the wickedness and why he said that they did this and that. All right.
And you can see that that's true to this day. Sorry, Sean.
The
land of Israel and Jerusalem to this day spiritually is Sodom and Egypt, because you hear a lot of wicked things that happen in that place. That's not a joke.
That's very true, and so said, so done. So again, reminder. Again, you had the wild olive tree, the natural one. Some branches that were broken off because they were unbelieving in the Messiah. So some branches were taken out of the wild olive tree, grafted in here. But most of the tree is Israel, just some branches. The tree is still Israel, belongs to the Messiah. Some natural branches came out and they came in. All right.